We all know that goal setting is really important to becoming successful, right? But then if that's the case, how come every year so many men and women set goals at New Year's Eve and they never follow through on them? I used to ask myself questions like this all the time. And it wasn't until my third failed business in a row that I realized that this goal setting thing really wasn't serving me as well as I'd been promised it would. So what is the reason that most people never follow through on the goals they set? What's the missing ingredient? Well, today I'm going to share that with you, and I'm going to share the insight that made a massive amount of difference for me and allowed me to go on to become crazy successful with women, really successful in business, and generally it enabled me to follow through and see the goals that I actually wanted to have in life. Keep watching to find out. Until just over 10 years ago, when I was 25 years old, I really wasn't any good at seeing anything through. In fact, I hadn't seen anything through really my entire life. You know, my report cards at school were full of Damien's a bright student, if only he would do homework occasionally, if only he'd apply himself, if only he'd study for exams, if only, it was filled with this kind of stuff. And, I straight out of the gate, I tried to start a DJ company, and that failed, and it failed a lot just because I didn't follow through. I didn't do the work that was required. I set a goal, I knew what I wanted, but I just couldn't push myself to do it. And then I created another company teaching parents about, drugs and actually when they should be worried with drugs with their children and how to approach the topic of drugs with their children. Again, that failed because I didn't see it through. I didn't follow through the things that I knew that I needed to do. I didn't have the willpower to do it. And so back in 2008, I wanted to start this company, the School of Attraction, teaching men to be more successful with women from a place of integrity and honesty. I really didn't want to screw it up again. I knew what I wanted. I had all my goals written down on a piece of paper and stuck to the back of the door in my bedroom. And I looked at it every day, and it inspired me to do work, but not much. I would come home from my regular day job, and I'd want to put the work in. I'd want to do what was required, but I just couldn't push myself to do it. And in frustration, I approached a friend of mine who had always given me some really important advice, some pivotal life advice. And he had retired when he was 35, I think, or 39, he'd retired. And I asked him what I was doing wrong or what the key was, because I just could never find the willpower to really follow through the big goals I wanted. And he said to me, look, this is the problem. Most people rely way too heavily on willpower. He said, if you think, and I'd never realized this, and I want you to think about this too. He said to me, if you think about all the people you know and have known of who have been super successful, really just worked so hard to follow through on their goals. He said, the people who just set goals and follow through with them doggedly like an animal and never seem to run out of willpower, they've often got something going on emotionally that they need to prove something to someone. They've got a chip on their shoulder and they're driven by some kind of undealt with neediness or, something to prove to the world, and that drives them. And it's good because it gets them success, but it's bad because it's really unhealthy. It's emotionally unhealthy for them, and these people tend to abandon their families or ignore their families to pursue their goals and all this kind of stuff. Their whole life, there's a price to pay because they're so doggedly obsessed with trying to prove something to the world. That's those people. He said, but Damien, you're not one of those. And he said, and I wasn't one of those. And a number of other guys I know who are successful weren't either. He said, but this is what they did. He said, instead of focusing on goals, they focused on habits, the habits that would lead them to accomplish the goals they wanted. So he said to me, Damien, this is what you should do. Stop trying to achieve a business size of this big. Stop trying to, call out and do cold calls to this many people. Forget all that. He said, your goal, your thing is to start creating habits that will lead you where you need to be. How would you feel about committing to 15 minutes a day? That's all. Just work for 15 minutes a day on your business. And I said to him, well, I could do that, but 15 minutes a day is never going to build a successful company. He said, yes, that's true, but just start the habit. Start the habit and see where that gets you. Okay, so I did that. I committed myself 15 minutes every day. As soon as I got back home from my day job, I'd work for 15 minutes. And of course, you don't get much work done in 15 minutes. But every now and again, I'd start something. I'd start working on the website, or I'd start working on the course material, and I'd get engrossed in it. And all of a sudden, an hour and a half had passed. But if I didn't feel like working any more than 15 minutes, I would stop. The only key was that I would do that 15 minutes every day. And something really crazy happened. After about a month or so, I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to push myself. It didn't require willpower to do 15 minutes. It was what I do. It was an automated habit. You know, it was just what I do. It's like eating breakfast. You don't have to push yourself to eat breakfast, probably. You don't have to, you know, I don't know, push yourself to go home after work. It's just what you do. And that's how I felt about working on the business. And that 15 minutes turned into half an hour, turned into 45 minutes, turned into an hour, because I was no longer lacking in willpower to do this task. You see, willpower is like this finite reserve. We all think we should rely on willpower, but actually you should never rely on willpower. You should rely on habit, because what happened to me, so as I said, after a month, it didn't require willpower to do the 15 minutes work. But even more than that, after about 3 months, I started dating my current partner. But what was funny is that every now and again, we'd want to go on a date. And to go on the date the time we wanted to go, I wouldn't have time to do my work on the company. And it was actually really hard not to do that work, because it was a habit. So once you got the habit, not only is it required no willpower to see it through, it requires massive willpower not to do it. So this was really big, because this whole company, this whole successful company that I've run for 10 years, runs on the back of this idea of me creating habits that led me to that point, not trying to focus on these lofty goals. So how could you apply this? This isn't a business blog. This is a dating channel. How could I apply this to dating? Well, one thing that I say to a lot of my clients, think about a habit. What kind of guy do you want to be? And what are his habits? And they say to me, well, I want to be a guy who, if he sees a girl that he likes on the street, he's just going to walk up and start hitting on her. Cool. So let's start that habit, right? So, for example, what you might do is every time, once a day, you've got to find a cute girl somewhere on the street, say at lunchtime, and you've got to walk up to her and just ask her for directions somewhere. You're not hitting on her. You're not telling her she's cute. You're not flirting with her. You're just asking for directions. Now, the habit that you're creating is you're starting to create a habit of being a guy who approaches cute women regularly. Don't worry that you're not hitting on her. Don't worry that you're not learning a lot. What you're doing, however, is you're creating a habit. I am now the guy, you are becoming the guy who approaches cute women. And once that becomes embedded, you do that every day for a couple of weeks. All of a sudden, you're the guy who does that. And then you can expand on that, right? And then every now and again, you'll approach a girl and you think, you know what, I'm just going to tell her she's cute. Or you know what, I'm just going to try to have a bit more of a conversation with her. So that habit, that basic starting point can then evolve into new habits that you add on the top of that. And before you know it, you're that guy who approaches cute women, flirts with them, and tries to get their number. All of a sudden, what approach anxiety? You become like a lot of my clients, my past clients, are in a position where they see a cute girl and it requires willpower not to talk to them. Wouldn't that be a powerful new version of you to have? You know, you can do the same thing with money, right? You're trying to save money. Well, why don't you just say, save every coin, every bit of loose change you have, you put away in a jar. You could probably afford that, right? Maybe $5, $6, $7, $8 a week. You start at that point. And every now and again, you'll think, I can afford to throw this $5 note away. I can afford to throw this $10 note away. And your savings, they'll start to grow because you start to become a guy who saves. Even if it starts super small and doesn't really accomplish a lot, you're creating the habit. You're creating that version of you. Learning to create new habits has changed my life and the life of my clients in ways that I can't even begin to explain, because it can touch everything that you do. Whatever it is that you want to achieve, if you stop, goals aren't bad. Right? Know what you want. That's important. But if you stop focusing on, I need to accomplish this goal, and you just focus on, I'm going to create habits, then every time you do that habit, no matter how small, it's a win, because you're slowly, little bit by little bit, becoming the guy who does, or the girl who does X, or the girl or guy who does Y. You're becoming that person just by starting the habit. And the more you do the habit, the more deeply ingrained it becomes. And before you know it, you are that person. So yeah, I mean, apply this. What do you think, viewers? Are you going to change your New Year's resolutions? Let me know below. How could you take whatever New Year's resolution you've set yourself, be it lose weight, stop smoking, save money, meet more girls, how could you change that into a habit-forming goal? rather than a big, hairy, audacious thing that you need to achieve, how you turn that something you do every single day to become that person? Let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so I don't miss you in any of my future videos. Take care.